We will move on to item 0530, California Health and Human Services Agency. Issue 1, Office of Law Enforcement Support, Spring Finance Letter. We're on page 25 of the agenda. Welcome back, Mr. Undersecretary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right, great. Madam Chair, Senators, this is on the Office of Law Enforcement Support. This is a follow-up proposal to one that we got last year. So last year we established the Office of Law Enforcement Support. The part that we got was mainly the support functions. So looking at the way that the DDS and state hospitals hire hospital police officers, investigators, the training that's done for those classifications, the policies and procedures that are used for doing their jobs, and the transfer policies are the main support type functions that we're looking at with the existing staff that we have, as well as looking at the really serious criminal investigations at the state hospitals and developmental centers. The proposal that we have in front of you right now is the second part to that. And so we are requesting $1.96 million general fund, $600,000 in reimbursement authority, and 15 permanent positions. This is to look at the administrative investigations for the similarly very serious incidents that happen at the state hospitals or developmental centers, and to do some limited inspections at the agency level for the really high-profile ones where we think that the agency has to take over the investigation rather than having the department do the investigation. And then also, and all of this will seem similar to what we were requesting initially last year. The main change from what we requested last year are the vertical advocates, and these are attorneys who would work for agency, and they would show up at the actual site at the beginning of an investigation to make sure that the evidence is being collected properly, that the right questions are being asked of witnesses, that the correct witnesses are being interviewed, to make sure that we have the best case possible to move forward both on the criminal side and also on the administrative side, so that when this goes to the district attorney or to the state personnel board, that we have a case that's going to be upheld. So that's the first question that you had in the agenda, is describing those. On the plan itself, so we put together an overall plan in March. It came out, a report that recommended how to proceed. And the plan that we've come up with, we consulted with CSLEA, so the union that represents the hospital police officers, the Office of the Inspector General. And in fact, that was the genesis of the vertical advocate part of the proposal, came from the Office of the Inspector General. The CHP, POST, the California DOJ, DDS, and DSH staff. And we had an initial consultation with DRC at the very beginning of this process, and I've been talking to them recently about further engagement on this and looking at the recommendations that we have in the proposal that we have in front of you now.
Based on the list you just shared, it doesn't sound like advocate stakeholders were at the table, so that would be helpful.
And DRC, we definitely want to make sure that their voice is heard in this. They're a very important part of the overall.
I would hope so.
Yes.
I would hope so.
Yep. And then how might this proposal change as the developmental centers downsize or close? Definitely not a short-term impact regardless of what happens with the developmental centers. We have retention issues as we downsize developmental centers, and you then end up with some issues around the staff that are there, or the vacancies that you have. And so we definitely want the oversight as we were downsizing, but then also when we looked at where we have the cases right now, 2/3 of those cases are at the Porterville inside the secure treatment area. And under any scenario that we have, the secure treatment area would be something we would maintain, so we would still have that workload associated with that. So I'd say that the impact, even if there were a plan to close the developmental centers, would be minimal.
Sean Martin with the Legislative Analyst's Office. We concur with the administration that oversight of the Office of Protective Services in Department of State Hospitals and Department of Developmental Services is needed. However, under the administration's proposal, the new Office of Law Enforcement Support Professional Standards section would be responsible for monitoring and critiquing the Office of Protective Services activities, which would be under the California Health and Human Services Agency, and as such, it would not have complete independence in carrying out its responsibilities. To address this concern, we recommend that a portion of the new funding proposed for OLS, specifically the resources requested for the professional standards section, be redirected to the Office of Inspector General, which currently provides similar oversight of the state's prison system. However, because the Office of Inspector General is a totally separate entity, this oversight would be provided with greater independence. In addition, given that the Office of Inspector General would already have the experience necessary for carrying out these duties, the $600,000 for the proposed contract with outside law enforcement to insist in establishing the professional standards section would not be necessary. Finally, given the need to ensure that employee misconduct investigations result in successful prosecution, we recommend the legislature approve the funding requested to support the 4 Attorney 3 positions within the vertical advocate unit.
Thank you. Finance. Nothing.
Just
Would you
real
like to
quick-
respond?
Yeah, just real
Great.
quickly, Madam Chair. So from our perspective, the developmental centers and the state hospitals have very different missions than CDCR. CDCR custody, the state hospitals and developmental centers, much more about treatment and team approaches. There are also many more people that are in the developmental centers and the state hospitals on a regular basis. There's oversight by the Department of Public Health, the State Council, Disability Rights California. So there's many entities that are in the state hospitals and the developmental centers who are looking at what's going on inside of those centers. The secretary is not responsible for the day-to-day activities inside of the centers. We have directors who are appointed by the governor who are responsible for the day-to-day activities, the overall policy, yes. And so we think that the agency level is appropriate and far enough away from the day-to-day activities that we can provide that oversight in an independent manner. Those are I'll leave it at that.
Public comment.
Greg DeJare with the Arkin United Cerebral Palsy. We've believed for years that it's an inherent conflict of interest to have the Department of Developmental Services supervising the law enforcement agency that takes care of it's supposed to police the Department of Developmental Services. We're not speaking to the mental hospitals, which are beyond our scope. We, in this case, believe that the whole thing should be moved to the agency level, perhaps with some role for the Inspector General, I'm not sure, but all of it should be outside of the control of the department.
Thank you. Next witness.
Madam Chair, members, Shane Levine on behalf of the California Statewide Law Enforcement Association. We represent the rank and file law enforcement personnel at both DDS and DSH. We're here to express our support for agency's plan to strengthen and support law enforcement divisions at DDS and DSH. And we appreciate the effort to change the culture within these two departments. However, we do want to impress upon the committee and highlight that there is an urgent need to take immediate steps to improve recruitment and retention of highly qualified and experienced law enforcement staff within both of these departments. We believe this is a cornerstone, or should be a cornerstone, of the agency's plan, as it is identified as a critical deficiency in the March 2015 report. Despite this critical deficiency, we are not aware of any immediate plans to remedy chronic high vacancy rates, frequent turnover, excessive overtime, and large pay disparity as described in reports by the Office of Law Enforcement Support, the Attorney General, and the State Auditor. Some of our facilities have vacancy rates as high as 47%, others at 20%. Some of our officers are working 70-plus hours of overtime a month. Pay disparities can range from $1,500 to $2,000 a month compared to local law enforcement jurisdictions, which are poaching our officers. So that being said, both DDS and DSH have submitted recruitment and retention proposals, or R&R proposals, to Cal HR and Department of Finance requesting authorization to remedy this critical deficiency by means of a recruitment and retention differential. It's our understanding that these are currently under consideration. So it's our position that these R&Rs, coupled with agency's plan, would undoubtedly improve law enforcement at DDS and DSH. So with that, we support this proposal. We think it's positive forward progress, and we believe that any forward progress moving forward should include this plan and also these aggressive R&R proposals for our members. And we look forward to continuing work with the agency and this committee, and we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Senator Monning, any questions or comments? Okay. It's going to be our recommendation to hold this item open pending May revision. However, since it's clear from my perspective, to use a highly technical term, it's not really soup yet. We want to direct subcommittee staff to work collaboratively with the LAO and the administration, as well as key stakeholders, on a proposal that could be presented to both subcommittees during the May revise hearing. And so that's what we'd like to have you do. Okay? Thank you very much. At this point, we're going to transition, thank you very much, to Part B of the hearing. Thank you. Bye. Michelle's coming up. No, Sam's coming up. We're doing human services. Did I say health? I meant human services. Say it again?
We're having folks present there.
Yes. So because we were able to take action on our vote-only items, we will be fast-forwarding to page 15. No, not of the agenda. I'm looking on my wrong document. We will be starting on page 5 of the agenda. Again, human services. Let me get all my papers straight. And I will invite the panel to join us at the table. Catherine Blakemore, Executive Director of DRC. Teresa Fazuzzi. Yes, Fazuzzi. California Foundation for Independent Living Centers. Tom Hines, we've heard from, East Bay Innovations. Angie Swartz from the Alliance for Children's Rights. Catherine Weiss, CEO, Red Cross Gold Country Region. This is the portion of our agenda where we'll be hearing about investment proposals. As soon as everyone gets comfortably seated, we'll begin. Oh. Tom Hines, also known as Dion Aaroner. Gotcha. Yes. Thank you. And we'll get started with Ms. Blakemore, and everyone has been asked to keep your comments within 2 to 3 minutes. Thank you.
So thank you for the opportunity. I want to talk a little bit about the Traumatic Brain Injury Program, and I will share my time with Teresa, who can add to that. We have been working since the last hearing to identify a way in which we can stabilize the traumatic brain injury program. And the proposal we have for you today is that we set a floor, a base of $2 million in funding each year for the traumatic brain injury program. We utilize the current funding that's available, which is from the state penalty fund of 0.66 is what they get of that funding, and instead supplement that with additional penalty funds that are available. The fund that we've identified is the driver training penalty fund, which is currently not used for its intended purpose because there is no mandated driver training services at schools. So that fund often is reverted back to the state general fund. So we think because it's all part of the state penalty fund, it provides a logical way for these really essential services for individuals with traumatic brain injury to receive services. The other note I'll make is that because of the funding decline, the centers that have been funded for more than 20 years have seen their funding reduced, and of those that have been funded for that period of time through the most recent competitive bid process, 4 of them were not refunded. There were actually 13 applicants, only 7 centers could be funded at the reduced rate of $120,000 per year. So that's the proposal, and any other time.
I just want to, you did a great job in telling the story. I think we really want to make sure that the TBI sites have a functioning program and that the Department of Rehabilitation has the funding. They need to actually administer the program. We have 4 sites that provided services for 20 years, and because this is the first time it's ever been competitively bid, we have a very big shakeup. I think what we can see is that there's a demand, given that there were 13 applications to provide these services, and this is an opportunity to stabilize the program without touching general fund. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I think we'll move next to Ms. Aroner, who's next in sequence here.
Yes,
Welcome
my name
back.
is Tom Hines.
Yes.
All right.
Sitting in for Tom Hines.
And I'm here on behalf of East Bay Innovations, which actually is a client of ours, so we have a relationship going, okay? This is a proposal called the Better Jobs Incentive Payment Pilot. The pilot would provide an incentive payment for Department of Rehabilitation supported employment vendors to find consumers jobs that earn higher wages. The current status is, in 2011, California's Employment Development Department found that 92% of Californians with intellectual and developmental disabilities were unemployed. Of the 8% that were employed, the average annual work-related income averaged around $5,500 for a year. The scope of the pilot is the Greater East Bay Department of Rehabilitation District, so it includes not only the program that I represent here, but other programs that provide supported employment services. The length of the pilot would be 3 years. The incentive payment would be $1,500 paid to the supported employment vendor each time they place a consumer in a job that either the consumer earns over Social Security's substantial gainful activity level of $1,090 per month, and the consumer is an SSI or SSDI recipient. That payment would be authorized at the Department of Rehab case closure by the consumer's counselor at the department. When we talk about the projected cost of this program, of the incentive payments, for the first year, we project 30 placements, which would cost $45,000. The second year, 45 placements at $67,500 a year. And the third year, 65 placements at $97,500. So the total cost of the incentive payments would be $210,000. What's important to know is that the Department of Rehab, on completion of each of one of those cases, if somebody is making over the Social Security, over the $1,090 a month, they receive $19,000 for every one of those consumers. And so if you figure in the first year there are 23 individuals that successfully complete the program, the department receives $437,000 for that year. In the second year, there are 34 individuals at $19,000. They get $646,000. And the third year, 49 individuals at $19,000 is $931,000. So the projected Social Security reimbursements to the department is over $2 million from the feds, even though most of the work has possibly been done by the supported employment vendors. So we think it's a pretty good deal for the state, right, to invest a little more money in order to get even higher returns in reimbursements from the federal government. So we hope you'll support this pilot project. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I think what I'd like to do at this point, see if Department of Rehab has any response to those first three comments. Any reactions you want to share?
I think that's on now. I'm assuming you mean the Ms. Dion Erner's proposal?
Yes.
Well, we certainly appreciate hearing about the proposal. As we know, it's not part of the administration's proposal, so we have not taken a position on that. Certainly, we'll look forward to any future conversations on how to evaluate it and look at it.
Great. And then on the TBI recommendations?
Yeah, again, it's a great description of some needed funding there, but as we know, it's not part of the administration's proposal, and we look forward to conversations on how to move forward on that.
Thank you. We appreciate working with you on that. And I think before we go to our final two panel members, let me just see if LAO has any comment on the first two, and then I'll ask Department of Finance as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ryan Woolsey with the Legislative Analyst's Office. We're in the process of reviewing these proposals that are before you, and we don't have any comments at this time, but we're available to the committee for technical assistance.
Great, thank you. And Department of Finance?
Thank you very much, John Zobel with Department of Finance. Just with a few technical notes related to the traumatic brain injury proposal. Currently, the Driver Training Penalty Assessment Fund has a structural imbalance, so adding an additional $1 million over 4 years would pretty much wipe out any of the balance that is in that fund. Just for a further note, 14-15, there was a bit of a general fund transfer out of that fund, but for 15-16, the governor's budget does not propose that.
Thank you, but will we know more after we see the May revise?
Yeah, we update revenues during the May revise, so we will have a refined number at that time.
Great, we look forward to working with you on that and engaging on both of these proposals. Thank you. So now we'll move forward with Angie Schwartz, Policy Director, Alliance for Children's Rights.
Thank you, members of the subcommittee. Angie Schwartz, Policy Director of the Alliance for Children's Rights. A few weeks ago, this subcommittee heard testimony regarding the continuum of care reform proposals that are currently pending, and at that time, my colleague, Susanna Niffen, underscored the importance of considering reforms to our foster care rate system in order to achieve the vision of the continuum of care reform. Recognizing that comprehensive reforms to our foster family rates will take some time, we've looked at some incremental steps that we can take in the short term to provide our families the support that they need as we implement the CCR. The proposal today that we have is fairly modest and involves our existing specialized care rate system. Specialized care increments are additional payments that are paid above and beyond the basic foster care rate to help families caring for foster children with more intensive needs. Our proposal is to simply remove the barriers that exist in current law that prevent counties from being able to provide these specialized care payments to all foster families and offset the cost of expanding specialized care to all of our family homes. Allowing specialized care increments to be paid to families is especially critical in the context of the continuum of care reform because the biggest obstacle in front of us in achieving the vision of CCR is identifying enough quality family placements to step up and provide a home for older youth transitioning out of group care. This is a big challenge as there's been a steady decline in family placements for older youth over the last decade. And the families that currently serve as placements for our youth that are 14 years of age or older, 70% of them are either relatives or family certified through a foster family agency. And it's those two groups of families, the relatives and the families that are certified through foster family agencies, that are completely excluded from being able to receive specialized care increments. Arbitrary rules that provide additional funds to some families and not others create resentment and stand in the way of the very recruitment that we're trying to do. It also undermines the culture that CCR is trying to create, which is aimed at partnering with families and allowing children to stay in the family identified rather than failing out of one family in order to get the support that they need in a different family. And at its core, specialized care is exactly what families need to take on the responsibility we're asking them to take on through CCR, which is to provide a home for young people with intensive needs who are stepping down from group homes. These youth need caregivers that can take time to attend appointments, therapies, school meetings, who can make modifications to their home, who can meet their special dietary needs, and be on call day and night, particularly for relatives who did not anticipate becoming foster parents and are thrust into the system with little warning. The added cost of taking on a child with intensive needs can overwhelm the family. And specialized care was designed to allow these children to be raised in family settings and avoid more restrictive placements. For historical reasons, specialized care has been denied to certain families, but it's imperative as we move forward with the CCR, we remove these barriers and allow all of our families to get the support they need. Thank you for considering our proposal today.
Thank you very much. And we'll move to our final panel presenter, Ms. Kathleen Weiss, CEO, Red Cross Gold Country Region.
Thank you for letting me come to talk to you today. In 1900, we received a congressional charter to provide national disaster relief and mitigation for the United States. In addition, the Red Cross is an unfunded MOU with our partners at Cal OES and the California Department of Social Services. The CDSS MOU dates back nearly 30 years ago and demonstrates the Red Cross's long-standing commitment to not only the citizens of California, but our partnership with the California state government in the execution of the mission. Together, these MOUs designate the Red Cross as a co-lead for mass care and shelter in the state with the CDSS. Mass care is a sheltering, feeding, and emergency care provided to large populations. Our MOU status allows the CDSS and the Red Cross to train, exercise, prepare, and respond together. The Red Cross does not receive state or federal funding for our disaster responses. We rely on the generosity of donors to fund our efforts. Today, we are asking for $2.5 million to be allocated through our partners at the California Department of Social Services to the Red Cross for the human and material resources necessary to conduct disaster preparedness and response activities. Of the total $86 million budget for the Red Cross chapter operations California, over $20 million is budgeted for disaster services. This includes the disaster response and recovery expenses, which total approximately $790,000 so far this year, including more than $380,000 for the Napa quake alone. In 2014, these costs were approximately $1.08 million. Every day, there are 46 disasters across the state of the Red Cross responds to. We do not just respond to federally or state-declared disasters. We respond to all disasters, including single-family home fires. With the drought and climate change, Red Cross services are crucial to California, especially given the increase in the occurrence and severity of large-scale fires. Between July 1st and September 30th, the Red Cross had a shelter open in this state continuously, with the exception of 18 hours. Just this past year, we provided services at the King Fire, which was California's third largest fire in history, at the same time as the Bull Fire, which destroyed 1/3 of the town of Weed. In addition, the Napa earthquake was a wake-up call for Californians. According to a recent report released by the USGS, California has a 93% chance of a magnitude 7.0 earthquake in the next 30 years. For more than 100 years, the Red Cross has helped Californians prepare for disasters and provided assistance with disaster strike, especially for those least able to help themselves. In every community in the state, the Red Cross immediately responds to disasters whenever they occur. As an independent organization, we are not dependent upon a declaration from the governor. We respond with need when there is a need. No other organization in California has our capacity to mobilize resources on a moment's notice to meet the needs of citizens during disasters, including our team of 8,255 disaster volunteers. If paid workers were doing the service delivery the Red Cross volunteers do, with a marketplace value of $26.34 an hour, it would amount to $217,437 an hour in California. The Red Cross provides an extremely efficient, cost-effective service to California and its communities that few other organizations provide. The American Red Cross, through its network of volunteers, donors, and partners, is always there in times of need. We aspire to turn compassion into action so that all people affected by disaster across the country and around the world receive care, shelter, and hope. We work to ensure our communities are ready and prepared for disasters and in an emergency. They are always trained individuals nearby, ready to use their Red Cross skills to save lives. Other states that provide us funding include New York, where we have received over $3 million for the last several years. We respectfully request your support for our proposal and are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Senator Monning, what did you just tell me now? We're going to go back to LAO.
Yes, see if LAO or finance on these.
Wants to respond to the last two at all? Excellent. Thank you very much for bringing forth your investment proposals, and we'll take public comment. Appreciate it. Yes, yes.
Two more items on the agenda. The assistive technology and ILC funding. Or at least it's on.
So where are we? On page 5? And so, are you, who's going to present those? You. Okay. Hold on, public. Here we go.
Thank you very much. Since 2000, California has prioritized and resourced independent living centers to provide assistive technology services. Each ILC has at least one staff person dedicated to assisting individuals, families, and caregivers about assistive technology that makes it possible for people to live independently and to succeed in school and the workplace. Mm-hmm. In addition, this funding has supported a statewide assistive technology network, which CFILC runs, called Ability Tools, that's focused on providing training and technical assistance and coordinating and collaborating services across the state. Currently, each ILC receives $70,000 annually, and the state hub receives $210,000. Our funding was cut in 2004, and we're seeking to bring our funding back to its original base of $100,000 per independent living center and $300,000 for the statewide hub. Recently, the independent living centers were mandated through the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act to provide new core services, meaning nursing home transitions and youth transition work. We believe that assistive technology is key and a critical element to providing those services. This request would not impact the general fund. Funding would be sourced from the Department of Rehabilitation Social Security reimbursements, which with an improving economy and DOR reforms and innovations is trending upward. The second request is that CFILC is seeking to address a longstanding inequity amongst California's base formula for independent living centers. We have 3 independent living centers that do not receive a base funding of $235,000. These centers are a Disability Resource Agency for Independent Living that serves Stanislaus, San Juan, Amador, Calaveras, Tuolumne, and Mariposa counties. Placer Independent Living Services, which serves Placer, El Dorado, and Alpine counties, and the Independent Living Center of Kern County. These ILCs are required to provide all the same services that the other 25 centers are required to provide. They were established with federal funding at a time when California funds were not available. However, we believe it's now time to make this modest investment of $705,000 annually. Funding again would be through the Department of Rehabilitation's Social Security reimbursement funds. Thank you for considering these.
And thank you for slowing us up so we didn't miss you. Appreciate it. Public comment on all of the investment proposals, please. Coming with a mic with fresh batteries. That's right, that's right. That's what happens when you have 20-hour hearings, huh?
In position and ready.
There you go.
All right, thank you. Madam Chair, Senator Monning, and distinguished staff. Rick Rollins here, first on behalf of the Brain Injury Association of California, in strong support of the first item, the Traumatic Brain Injury Funding. I want to thank Ms. Blakemore for her great presentation of this. This is a population, as you know, that often goes unnoticed in our process, and the Tibiscus sites do a great job in serving this population. The second item is the Better Jobs Incentive Program. On behalf of the Association of Regional Center Agencies, we're in support of that item as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Hi, my name is Katie Shinoda. I'm from Mercy General Hospital's Home and Community Reintegration Program for Traumatic Brain Injury, and I'm also representing Traumatic Brain Injury Services of California, and we are in strong support for the augmentation to the TBI funding for these much-needed services. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Yeah, hi, my name's Robert Klein, and in 2000, I suffered a TBI and have participated in all aspects of Mercy's TBI program since 2001, followed by the Bridges program since 2004. My quality of life is a lot better because of these tools I learned from the programs. The individual and group therapies I received there taught me to relate to people again, use a daily planner, and many other tools that have helped me graduate with my BA, hold down a job, and eventually I got married.
Hey, all
I
right.
was shocked and sad to hear that the budget for many of the programs I benefited from have already been greatly reduced, and as of July 1st, Mercy will no longer offer a return-to-work program. I fully support the proposed budget augmentation so that Mercy can continue to provide the services that help better so many lives and allow people with brain injuries to again be productive members of society.
Thank you very much for your testimony today. Appreciate it.
Marty Emoto, California Disability Senior Community Action Network, also a family member. Just first want to thank the Department of Rehab. I've worked with many of the staff over there, and they're good people. But I strongly support the 4 proposals being advanced by stakeholders, especially the TBI. I was on the stakeholder group to put together the waiver. So it's so important that we fund that program as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Will Sanford, Futures Explored. I'm here in support of the TBI program for reasons stated before. I think it's an underserved or a missed population that we also need to really support. And I'm always in support of anything that would help improve opportunities for jobs, career investment, et cetera, which is what the Better Jobs Incentive Program would do.
Thank you.
Evelyn Abu Hassan, Disability Rights, California. Of course, I won't speak to the TBI issue. Ms. Blakemore spoke to that already. We want to lend our support to CFILC with restoration of the assistive technology services cuts and the independent living services cuts. In regards to the Better Jobs Incentive Payment Program, we encourage that if the department is going to adopt this proposal, to please ensure that individuals are placed in integrated employment at or above minimum wage. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Hi, thank you. This is Brian McDonald at the World Institute on Disability in Berkeley, California. We run a program called Disability Benefits 101 in California, which is state-centric information on benefits and work for people, residents going back to work, which were topics of most of the panelists today. Since this is a budget committee, I wanted to sort of key and acknowledge Deanna Arner's comments and Deanna Arner, period, being on the panel. She was the author of AB 925 back in 2002, as many of you know. And part of the stipulations in AB 925 is that when the state is doing benefits planning services, that they support state coordination with and participation in benefits planning training and information dissemination projects supported by private foundations and federal grants. A lot of reasons for this request for coordination. In the regional center system, there are about 108,000 California residents who are deemed eligible and/or could benefit from employment support services. That's a lot of cost reimbursement on the table because they're all on SSI or SSDI or one or the other, or most all of them are. Right. There are 1 million working age adults on SSI and SSDI in this state, roughly, looking for services and supports. Primarily, when cost reimbursement is involved, every one of those folks who go back to work are bringing revenues back to the state of California from the Social Security Administration. So a coordination of effort on these topics of employment support and return to work could not be more important for a budget committee and the revenue generated back to the state of California. Final note I wanted to make along those lines for your consideration as a budget committee, when this population is working, we have enough research to fill a truck that their Medicaid utilization goes down. Medicaid is a major cost to the state of California. Same population that retains their Medicaid when they work, which they should, but their use of Medicaid goes down in appreciable amounts besides paying taxes and all that other good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Final witness.
Susanna Niffen with Children Now. I'm here to support the proposal Angie Schwartz provided about providing specialized care increments to families in the foster care system. I just wanted to say that if we really want CCR to work and we want to step down kids from group homes, we have to provide all families, including relatives, with the resources that they need to stabilize these children.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all the advocates. Oh, I'm sorry. Senator Monning, yes.
I perhaps should have done this earlier, but just real quickly for Ms. Blakemore or Ms. Favuzzi, the TBI proposal, can you offer any sense of are returning veterans accessing these services?
So we certainly know that veterans are one of the groups that has a significant rate of traumatic brain injury, and from speaking to some of the providers, we know that they are served by that program. So thank you for the reminder about that. It's a really important population that would benefit from an expansion of those programs.
Right. And while, as we've discussed, I know Veterans Administration might be a first stop for direct medical or recovery services, the location of these facilities in communities may be more proximate to a recovering veteran who can access those services.
That's correct, and really help with the community reintegration components as opposed to just the medical component that the Veterans Administration would be focused on.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for the reminder of that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks to the panel for your investment recommendations. I want to be clear that these aren't all of the investment proposals we received in the human services area. Page 7 of the agenda lists a number of others that were previously heard in hearings and the hearing dates that they were heard.